Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're doing something a little different. We're going to be talking about two short films that are based in the DC universe, with one being based off a character from Sandman. So we decided to do this because we were really kind of liking Sandman and kind of wanted to go more into that kind of supernatural lore within the DC universe specifically. And so that's what led us to this. So just so you guys know, we are going into spoiler territory for both of these short films, but on the bright side, they're really short. So if you want to go and watch them, go and check them out. They're on HBO Max. We'll get into the specifics of how you can watch them shortly because it's a little confusing, but they're all about like 20 minutes to 27 minutes long, and you can finish them real quick. But let's go ahead and just jump right into this. So, the two shorts that we're going to be talking about are DC's Constantine House of Mystery and DC Showcase for Death. So, those two short films are on two different movies. House of Mystery is on its own movie called House of Mystery, but it is only 27 minutes out of an hour and a half long movie. So that's accompanied by a couple of other shorts. So fortunately, that one's at the beginning. You want to watch it, you can get it over with. If you want to watch the DC Showcase for Death, that one comes at the very end of Batman: Death of the Family on HBO Max. It's accompanied where they have that short film at the beginning. There's a couple of the short films in the middle, and the very last short film uh, in that movie is the Death short film. So now you know where to find it. Now you know what we're talking about. Let's actually talk about these movies, starting with Constantine House of Mystery. So I'm curious, Cheryl, because I know that you haven't really watched the DC universe like movies that are based on the New 52 like timeline, but this movie did something that I didn't think it was gonna do, and that's it. It picked up immediately after the end of the DC Universe movie Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. And slight spoiler alert for the ending of that movie, but that movie ended where our heroes won, but they had lost a lot in the process. Like a lot of characters die, and a lot of characters are irrevocably changed, and they're all just sitting there, just kind of pondering this kind of like bittersweet victory. And so Constantine is standing there and he's looking at a broken down Flash and he gets an idea. And he tells Flash that he has to run. He says, "Barry, you have to run one more time. One last time you have to run and you have to undo all of this." And he inspires Barry. Barry starts running and he goes into the Speed Force, and then that's how the movie ends. And that's the entire end of like there's like I think 15 movies that led up to that moment. So it was really bittersweet, but it was really cool how they decided to end that universe. But this movie picks up exactly where that left off, and then I guess shows us what happened next for Constantine. Now I want to kick it to you. Like now that you have more of a little bit of context, but without that context, even still, like what were your thoughts like when you started watching it?
I was really confused because I had no idea that it was a continue. I mean, I had some idea because it was kind of starting in the middle of something. It wasn't very cohesive on its own, at least at the beginning of it. But once he starts like in that world, and it was interesting because the drawing style changes
Mm-hmm.
when the section of the actual story for Constantine starts. So to me, I'm like, okay, all that other stuff's probably something going on before, not connected. So, but after your explanation, it makes a lot more sense. Where like, I suppose the reason why the drawing style changes is a way to mark that now we're starting a different story,
Yeah.
and this is something that's disconnected from the opening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of shows that it's their way to represent that we're in a new universe now. And then the question then becomes, well, why is John Constantine trapped in the House of Mystery and dying over and over again? And by the way, the House of Mystery made an appearance in the Sandman uh, Netflix show as well. Sandman goes and they actually, I think one of the two twins is standing in front of the House of Mystery and actually mentions the House of Mystery behind them. So don't worry, guys. This is still connected to Sandman in some kind of way. But the question becomes, yeah, why is Constantine trapped in the House of Mystery and he's being killed over and over again by people that are his friends? Zatanna is one of those characters that is also there, and in the previous timeline, Zatanna, and sometimes, and a lot of times in the comic books, Zatanna and Constantine have a thing. And so Zatanna's a demon. They're all demons, and they're constantly murdering him, and he doesn't know why. And so there's a very much a Edge of Tomorrow kind of vibe to this, or a Groundhog Day type deal where he has to figure out how to stop the loop. But one of the things that it even though I like, I'll go back real quick, even though I like the fact that the animation changes to denote like now we're in a different universe, a different timeline, and things have changed, I found myself not really liking the art style as much. Like when you see the two John Constantines together and you see how one's drawn compared to the other, I'm like, I like the way the original John Constantine was drawn more than this new John Constantine. And I wasn't sure if you kind of had a similar feeling.
I didn't really mind. To me, it was just more of I was so confused by what was going on, but not in like a like I don't understand what I'm watching kind of way, but like confused as in I'm just trying to figure out what the story is, because Constantine is a very messy kind of
Mm-hmm.
character, and a lot of his stories that I've seen him in are very complex because he's
Yeah.
doing all kinds of weird voodoo magic, and he could, and you don't really know like if what he's doing is like, oh, he's just drinking water, or if he like just drank a potion or something, or if it's like holy water that he needs for protection for something he's about to do in some place that he's about to go. You never know.
Yeah.
Like every little action that he takes may or may not be very significant, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of that where I just couldn't really like. I mean, the art style like changed at the beginning, so I
Mm-hmm.
think I just kind of got used to it very quickly. Um,
Right.
yeah, I mean the beginning was so short with
Mm-hmm.
the first art style, so I actually had to rewind it back so that I could compare them.
Right. Yeah, there's a moment where John Constantine sees an older version of himself, like before he lost his memory, talking to the Spectre, who is the one that trapped him here. As Constantine starts figuring out the mystery of why he's here, he discovers that he's been trapped here because of a decision that he made, which is the decision to tell the Flash to run back in time and change the future. And so the Spectre says that you have trifled with us for the last time, or trifled with the universes. This is one thing that you should not do, and blah blah blah. Even though it was Barry that technically did it, John Constantine just told him to. So I don't know why John's here, but whatever. We'll let that go. Barry changes the timeline the whole time. Like even the way this timeline started was because of Barry doing Flashpoint. Because if you watch the Flashpoint movie, the results of that movie is what led to the new 52 timeline of films. So that happened in the middle of this. So you could say Flashpoint is the beginning of it, Apocalypse War is the end of it, and both of them are built around the Flash. But whatever, I digress. Um, he finds out that the Spectre is the reason that he is here, and so Constantine tells the Spectre, "Well, you should let everyone know that you've imprisoned me here as a warning to future people to make sure that they don't do the same thing that I did." And going into what you were saying about how Constantine is always kind of messy and there's always something else that you don't really know. That's how I know Constantine too. And in this moment, he says this, and you're like, that feels weird that he's saying it, but it's because it's all a part of his plan, and this plan is messy. So then he is trapped in this house of mystery for, I think he's literally trapped in there for years. I want to say, just being murdered over and over again. I forget how many years he was actually trapped there, but it was longer than like a few. And so, and he's just getting murdered, and then eventually demons show up, And the whole reason the demons are there are because John Constantine sold his soul not to one, not to two, but to three different demons who have all come to collect. And when I saw that, I was like, yeah, this feels like John Constantine that I know.
Yeah, and that's like one of the reasons why I like this animation, even though I didn't understand that it was a continuation of something. Like the story in itself it's just so very Constantine. Like everything about it is very like I don't read the comics,
Mm-hmm.
but I've seen enough things with Constantine in it to watch this and be like, yeah, it fits in with like literally every other Constantine thing that I have seen. So he's not necessarily my favorite character from DC, but I respect his character and like
Mm-hmm.
how different he is like in the sense of he's not a traditional DC superhero, but he's kind of one of those one-off guys like Lobo or something that's like not as well known but well known enough for
Mm-hmm.
people to like be interested and recognize and like for him to be used in a lot of different DC content. But I think they did a good job with it. In the sense of keeping it true to Constantine, and now that I know that it's part of the bigger storyline, it's kind of cool. Gotta go back and look at it.
Yeah, when you get some time, it's definitely worth seeing the all the movies that in the timeline. Like there are some that are better than others, but there's some good ones. There's some gems in there that are really good. Um, the other thing that's interesting or that's cool is that they brought back Matt Ryan to do the voice of Constantine. So for those of you guys that don't know, Matt Ryan plays the live action version of Constantine on the show before it got canceled, and they continued playing that character into the Legends of Tomorrow franchise. So they got him to come back and do the voice acting for all I think of the animated versions of Constantine up until this point. And he's a really good voice actor. He's a good actor that evokes Constantine, but I almost want to say he works even better as a voice actor. When I hear his voice and see John Constantine, it fits to me. I don't think to myself this doesn't sound like how John Constantine should sound. So the I think he does really good voice work for that character and found a really good way to make that character his own.
That's funny. I didn't know that it was the same actor because I was like, this guy sounds great. He sounds just like Constantine.
Yep, exactly. The same actor. So the the way this ends is the one thing that kind of like it's a downer ending. It makes sense, but it kind of upset me as somebody who came from a story that was continuing because you so when the demons come to take his soul, they end up fighting each other, and then because he's Constantine, he finds a way to save himself but trap the demons, and then he escapes the House of Mystery. And then that's when he runs into the Spectre, and the Spectre tells him that I put you in that house to keep you safe. And the only reason that you were getting killed over and over again is because you think that you deserve punishment. So you actually did that to yourself, but I put you there to be surrounded by your friends and family for all eternity as like a paradise, not as a punishment. So now there's another like twist where the we thought we knew gets flipped. And then now the Spectre says, I can't hide you anymore, and the universe itself is coming to get you. And the end of the movie or the end of the short film is Constantine literally getting sucked into the center of the universe for his transgressions, and then he's just gone. And so, like, from just a story standpoint, that is cool. That is a very cool, like, short story. But as a continuation of a character that we have technically followed for the last couple of years, to have this be his ending after he basically sacrifices everything to save the world, he ends up getting like disappearing without a trace and punished, and no one even knows what he ended up doing for them. That doesn't sit right with me. That kind of bothers me a little bit. But from a short film perspective,
Uh,
I think it's great.
he'll get out of it. He always gets out of it.
But now I got to see that movie.
um, but yeah, I was gonna say that this is another great example of an animation that is definitely not for kids. So And I know we like to point that out because I think it's a very common misconception nowadays that if it's animation, like adults don't want to watch it because they think it's for kids. And um, more and more we're seeing how, uh, it really is just another medium for storytelling and not necessarily a genre.
Absolutely. And I think that is like will continue to change more and more as more of our generation become adults and start having kids and stuff like that because our generation kind of grew up with the adult swim and tsunami age, and so we've seen that transition. We also grew up with things like Family Guy and Futurama and all these other like adult animated cartoons, obviously with the first one being The Simpsons. But yeah, so I think the narrative is starting to change, but absolutely there's still people that look at animated things and think it has to just be for kids. And same thing with 3D animation too. And the truth is, no. It's like you said, it's just another medium for storytelling and telling beautiful stories at that. But before we transition to talking about the next short film, Death, was there anything that you wanted to just finish saying about Constantine?
Nope, that's it for me.
Okay. But overall, you said that you did enjoy it though.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, same here. And the next one that we're talking about, Death, which as we said, you can find at the end of the Batman Death of the Family movie on HBO Max. This one is another kind of slow burn. It's not as action heavy. Like the Constantine one isn't like action in the traditional sense. It's basically just him trying to figure out how not to get killed, which he always fails at until the end. But this one is kind of a slow burn. It's about an artist named Vincent who has trouble connecting who has trouble like operating in the real world, and he has trouble with his art. We see a little bit of his life. His girlfriend or wife left him because she just couldn't deal with him like destroying himself. He literally is a starving artist, a tortured artist soul, and he gets fired from his job because he can't paint the gates of Arkham without like feeling like he needs to take a couple of extra brushstrokes because he's a painter. So he's one of those types of characters. And one day when he's in the bar, he meets Death, and Death just talks to him, but you don't get the idea that he's dead, but you do get the idea this story does something that's really cool. Like we remember Death from the Sandman episode where she's going and just talking to people, and she starts that one episode talking to that guy and saying I'll come and see you later, and she leaves and she comes back and collects him. So when she meets him in the bar, it's really cool because she's just talking to him, they're having a moment, and then she gets up and she walks outside and you see police lights flashing outside, and a person standing there on the other side of the door. And when she gets to the other side of the door, she says to that person, are you ready? And you, because you know who she is, you know what that's about. And I just thought that that was really cool. But before I get into like too much of what happens in this, what what were your kind of feelings on like the animation and everything else that you were like experiencing when you started watching it?
I mean, I really liked it. I don't know if it's because I'm partial towards the whole Sandman thing, and this being, one of the one of
Siblings.
Dream's siblings, um, and just that we had recently watched the live action series on Netflix. But I did really like it, and that little bit you were just saying where you could hear her asking, "Are you ready?" Is such a great way of telling us who she is, feeding us clues, even if you had no idea what this is about. I know the title of the short I think is called Death, so I think you
Mm-hmm.
could really put two and two together.
Right.
Um, but like I feel like this is such a cool side bit that we get to see to focus on this one character. So I was pretty excited about the whole thing, even though it's kind of somber. It's about death
Very somber.
and the main character. I almost feel like the reason why they chose this character to be an artist is because like we have all kind of felt like we had gone through something like this where like just having the life of an artist really sucks. And I mean, it does, and that's what I wrote down. Like the life of an artist sucks, and in some ways does, and the reason why it doesn't suck is because of our art. So the idea of her saving, I know, like we're just gonna jump to the end of the story here, but but before he dies, or like in the midst of him dying, Death saves his art piece, his masterpiece, and she doesn't allow it to be destroyed. And I think like that's such a a heartfelt thing, and like it was such a like touching moment, because it really is like something that an artist would put their whole life and soul into, is their art. And the fact that she saved it means, you know, symbolically that she saved him even though she was also taking his life.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's very somber and bittersweet. There and it's very simple. It's not a complicated story, and that's the whole thing about shorts. Like normally you don't have time to make it that complicated. You want it to be simple and easily digestible. You see the hints that she is death. There's the whole reason that he even starts to paint her is because he hears people shouting at her outside, and he goes out there to tell those people to leave her alone. But when he goes down there, they're gone, and she's standing there by herself. And then he sees like down the way, like I think like police or some bodies or something like that. I can't remember, but either way it's implied that the people that she was talking to were people that had died, and they were yelling at her because they weren't ready to go. And so but the movie doesn't tell you that, but it's what you can infer. And so like I don't know, I'm trying to remember because it's been a while since we watched it, but I don't remember if I felt to myself that he died the moment that he passed out on the couch, but part of me feels like I might have suspected it. I definitely at least knew that he was going to die by the end of this because if you're like you're talking to death, you're not long for this world. So, um, but I guess I wasn't sure, and I guess that's where. And you know what? Thinking about it, I think that's kind of the supernatural aspect of it, right? Because he would have had to do that drawing after he was already dead. So he that's I think the really nice thing about this story, which is kind of like so crazy because it means not only that he did this drawing after he had already quote unquote died, he basically was being allowed to do this drawing and have it manifest in the physical world. And then you have that moment, like you said, where the apartment catches on fire because he died smoking a cigarette. And so you think that now the drawing that he just manifested is going to be destroyed. And they don't actually show you her saving it, they just show them talking, and you get the impression that she might save it. And then when they come through and they find and they wheel out his body and they're looking at the destroyed apartment, that's when they show that the painting is still there. And then also is the first time you get to see what he actually drew, which was a painting of death, which we knew that she was the subject, but we couldn't see what it looks like. So all of that comes together to just create like this really, it's sad because he still died and that's his life. He will never get to do another drawing. But it's also beautiful because she gave him one last chance to leave his mark on the world and then allowed that mark to be left there. And that's I think what like a really cool thing about this short film.
Yeah, and it was really short. I think it was only like maybe 15 minutes tops. I think it might
Yeah,
have
it was pretty
been
short.
even shorter than that. But like, there's so much storytelling and development and character in this short, even though there are very few characters. But I feel like the way that death is portrayed is kind of nice. I think, it kind of makes you wish it was real because, if death was really that nice, then it, maybe dying would be so bad. If, you're being greeted by like a really nice person who, and she's portrayed as someone who like really cares about people, like,
Yeah.
and she's like the perfect personality to be taking, these people and ferrying them into wherever they go when you die. So the fact that they were able to show so much of this in this short, like even if you haven't seen the live action version or read the comics or anything, and you only watch this, it tells you so much, and it's just uh, it's a standalone. You don't need anything else to
Yeah.
understand this, and that's why it's so great. Like we just, when we were talking about Constantine, you kind of are you get a little bit confused because you don't know what's going on. Maybe if you
Right.
don't know Constantine, how are you going to understand like this character and everything? You need to know stuff going into that to
Yeah.
understand it. But this short story, you literally need to know nothing.
Mm-hmm. That's true. You don't need to know anything about Sandman or any of that whole like family line, family tree. You can just, yeah, as a movie, you can just enjoy it itself. And I this portrayal is obviously very different than what we saw in Sandman, and I don't think either you or I have read the comics for Sandman or for Death, so I'm not entirely sure about what her portrayal looks like. I think I looked up an image once, and I think that this portrayal is probably more accurate
Yeah.
to the comics.
Yeah, from what I was told by Sandman fans, yes, this drawing is a lot closer to the actual comic than the show.
Right. I love the top hat. I wish that they could find a way to have her wear a top hat in the live action show. It looked great. Like I loved it. But and I love the tattoo on her eye. Like all of that, like that design just looks really cool. And then like one of the last things I kind of want to bring up here was just the fact that Jamie Chung was the person who did the voice for Death, which I thought was kind of cool. I think that her voice was really good for Death in this. I think that it worked really well. So I I don't recall hearing Jamie Chung in too many voice roles over the years. So I hope that she starts to get into it more and more. And maybe she has done some stuff that we just haven't seen. But I enjoyed her portrayal of Death in this, so I would definitely like to see her come back and do Death in the future and something else, or just to do more voice work in general because she's definitely really good.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, to be honest, I would love to have more Sandman stuff because the writing is pretty good.
Yeah, and it sounds like I mean even with the Sandman show, there's a lot of standalone stories that you can just experience, and
Yeah,
so
there's a lot
that's
of
I
content.
yeah, so that just makes it easy to get into. But I mean, it sounds like out of the two, uh, this one was your favorite.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I think that out of the two, this is also the stronger one. Also, not only from just I guess, interest in like from an intrigue perspective, but also from just a standalone being able to only watch it as a short without any knowledge and being able to enjoy it even without any knowledge of DC. You could watch this and not have any knowledge of DC and be able to still enjoy it. And the only real DC nod I want to say is the fact that he's painting a gate at Arkham Asylum, and that's it. Outside of that, everything else just works on its own, and it's great.
100%. And that's the one of the best ways to do short films, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get out of here, is there anything else that you wanted to get off your chest about these, like either one of these two shorts we talked about today?
No, just I hope that I make something before I
Yeah, that's the dream of all of us artists, and hopefully by the time we do die, we are greeted by a very nice
A
person
nice
to
lady
to ferry us along.
will ask me if I'm ready.
Yes, exactly. Please let me go when I'm ready. But that's what we thought about Constantine the House of Mystery and DC Showcase Death. Have you guys seen either one of those short films? Have you seen any of the other short films that were accompanying those movies or that those shorts were a part of? Were they good? Were they equally as enjoyable, or were these the best ones? Are there other ones out there that you guys think that we would like and that we should see, just in general? Any type of short animated stuff that you think that you would like to hear us talk about on this show? Whatever you thought, whatever you think, comment down below. Let us know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here, you want to see more, like make sure that you click like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next time.